To fap or not to fap? That is the question. That is the question that drives me crazy. We get it about 3 times a week. Is masturbation detrimental to gains? And so today we're going to discuss basically all of the medical literature that I can find to support one way or another. Stay tuned and we'll talk about that. So today we're going to discuss the effects that masturbation has on PE, if any. And so to get right to the chase, does masturbation, fapping, have any effect on PE? And just to be clear, PE, we're talking penis enlargement. No, it has no bearing whatsoever for the most part. Now, there are a few caveats that we'll discuss as well. And so there's no medical evidence that I can find to say that in any way that masturbation is going to affect your ability to gain during PE. However, there are some important factors that we should think about. So first and foremost, can you still grow if you masturbate? Absolutely, it has no bearing. And in fact, sometimes it's even motivated me because I know, like, all right, maybe I don't feel like doing my PE, which actually doesn't happen, but then I look forward to the end of the session because then I can, relieve myself. Let's talk about a few factors, okay? So let's say, will you grow faster if you don't masturbate? Well, no, I don't think so. So when you stop masturbating, especially if your masturbation is associated with pornography, you can actually have significantly improved rates of arousal. And so where does this come into baseline? Well, it can actually, in fact, help with your erection quality. And so erection quality is important for certain exercises, especially when you're talking about like girth exercises or, how I recommend pumping when you go in hard. If you have better erection quality and better arousal, it's going to be easier for you to get to those states of engorgement, and that could in fact help with your PE. Another example of this is actually just with increased blood flow to the penis. And so what I've noticed, since I've actually tried to dramatically reduce the amount that I masturbate just for my overall health and well-being, I noticed that, like, if I'm walking through the hospital and I see a nurse and she has a nice bottom, that I will actually start to get aroused, and I'll actually notice that there'll be some increased blood flow to my penis. And so getting that increased blood flow to the penis can arguably help with your overall penile health, because the more blood flow, the more oxygen, the more healthy tissue, the more viable tissue. A separate component is the actual pornography component from FAP, and I'm going to have to do a more detailed video on this because there's a lot to it. So first of all, is pornography induced erectile dysfunction? Is that a real thing? Well, there's questionable evidence actually. And so if you look at this review paper that I'll put up on the screen, there's actually little evidence that looking at pornography itself has an impact on your actual erectile function. But what we do know is that if you are masturbating, especially over masturbation, and you are looking at pornography, that this can in fact screw up your dopamine system, your reward system. You can end up basically going down a slippery slope of needing basically darker and darker, pornography in order to reach those same arousal levels and to get that same dopamine release. And so, you start off and you're looking at, I don't know, maybe like busty MILFs, and then next thing you know, you're looking at like 12-person gangbang bukkake, like BBC, all down this like deep rabbit hole of pretty extreme stuff to get you off. And so that's not healthy for your overall mental health and sexual health in general. And so I do think abstaining from pornography to a certain extent is beneficial, but once again, we're talking about fapping and PE, and that is kind of a separate, unrelated component to it. Does it affect testosterone levels? Well, actually, believe it or not, it does. And so this study here that I'm pulling up actually looked at testing your testosterone levels at basically 3-week intervals between no fapping and fapping. And what you can see is that shortly after that fapping session that you can actually have a spike in testosterone. Is it meaningful? I mean, arguably, if you're looking for every little ounce of testosterone that you can get, then yeah, maybe try, a 3-week no fap spell and then fap, and you can get that testosterone boost. And that might be, a cycle that's healthy for you. But beyond that, there's no clear evidence that no fap does anything at all. And there's certainly no evidence that it actually improves testosterone levels at that point. I don't know, maybe there'll be some no fappers here like watching this, and they can put their own comments, and hopefully you can read that as well. But from what I can discern, there's no clear evidence of no fapping. And so, but more importantly, so okay, you don't fap for 3 weeks, then you fap, and then you get a testosterone boost. Well, how does that help? It doesn't. I mean, not that I can think of. And so this is an argument that, not an argument, but a discussion that comes up in PE all the time is, you know, what benefit does testosterone levels have? Well, it's actually limited. And so I don't know if you know this, but you actually don't need testosterone at all to have an erection. You don't. There's plenty of studies looking at people that basically have extremely low, especially some of these like genetic abnormalities, people with essentially no testosterone, and their actually ability to have an erection is not impacted whatsoever. So you do not need testosterone to have an erection if you have a functioning penis. That being said, as you age, there are certain subgroups of men that actually do not respond very well to Viagra, and this can be from a couple of different things. Number one, just their body just doesn't, you know, respond well to PDE5 inhibitors like Viagra. Number two, they don't have enough nitric oxide in their body. Or number three, they actually are deficient in testosterone. And so what this study showed is that if you do supplement older males that are non-responders to Viagra with additional testosterone, you can in fact get better erections. So once again, what does that have to do with PE? Well, you know, once again, you could go down that if you have better erectile function, you can get better workouts, which could potentially lead to, you know, better or faster enlargement, but there's no clear evidence that that's the case. Another potential benefit of no FAP is actually a decreased risk of injury. A lot of people don't like it when I say this, but there is very clear evidence. All you have to do is just Google PubMed and type in masturbation injury into the search engine, and you will see thousands of papers about guys who have even gone so far as like penile fracture from overly aggressive masturbation. And yes, there's even a paper, which I'll put up here, where there's guys who have received hard flaccid from over aggressively masturbation. And so if you don't masturbate, you can decrease your risk of injury. So if you decrease your risk of injury, obviously that will not limit your ability to do PE because you're recovering, and so you could be more consistent. So one could argue that, yeah, okay, if you're not masturbating, decreased risk of injury, more time doing PE, more gains, okay? But once again, that's kind of a stretch, get it? But, you know, I don't think that, as long as you are careful. I actually made, you know, I've addressed it in several other videos, but, you know, as long as you're careful. And what I always recommend is, instead of using your hand, if you're going to use your hand, use lube. And if you're going to masturbate, I would recommend using like a sleeve or like a fleshlight or something like that, so it's less potentially damaged. So what I find when I reduce masturbation is that I actually have an improved libido. I enjoy sex more. I find sex more fulfilling in real life with my real encounters, and my orgasms are much more powerful. And so in a way, at least the way I practice PE, it's almost like edging. And so in a lot of ways, it's actually hard to not masturbate to completion after each session because of the stimulus continuously on my penis throughout the session. Because I'm applying that stimulus, and then on top of that, it's almost like edging with certain things like pumping or even the way I clamp. When I finally do get that relief, it's just much more fulfilling. And it's also just a nice reminder that like real life is better. Like, it's so much better. Gosh, even, yeah, anyways, that's another story for another day, but it's so much better. I find sex way more rewarding. And so, you know, this isn't one of those videos, but, you know, what do I recommend in order to fap less? Well, first of all, be aware of when you do it and why you do it. Some people do it because they're bored. Some people do it because they're horny. Some people do it just because it helps them go to sleep at night. So if you figure out what your triggers are, you can try to avoid those triggers. If you're always doing it before bed, you know, maybe try, you know, putting it on the other nightstand, and so you have to reach all the way over to get it, or consider something like a non-habit forming sleep pill, which, you know, hopefully in the near future, actually, the Leviathan supplements will be coming out with. Also, have an immediate plan for after PE. So if your biggest trigger is PE, then, you know, set a schedule. I'm going to do it from this to this. And then when that time window is up, have something you have to go do. You have to leave for dinner. You have to go work out. You have to go to work. So you don't have that time to masturbate. Get a hobby instead of masturbating. You know, learn Spanish, join a gym, start painting, you know, anything. And, you know, there's also a lot of online anonymous support groups to actually stop masturbating or reducing your masturbation, especially with porn addiction. Final answer, okay? No FAP or FAP, does it matter? It does not fucking matter. Can we please stop having this discussion on Reddit? And so it doesn't matter. If you want to, great. If you don't want to, great, do you. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect your gains, okay? Is there a benefit to reducing the amount that you masturbate? Yes, I do believe that there is, and everything in moderation. I think that there's overall, you can improve the overall health of your penis, the overall health of your sexual encounters when you are not masturbating as much. But does it affect enlargement? No, okay? You can still grow and you are not affecting anything with a regular jerk session. I can attest to that. I was, honestly pretty aggressively masturbating like 7 to 10 times a week through the whole first year of PE, and that's of course when I made my most great gains. And so it doesn't matter. Try not to overdo it. Try not to overdo the porn. But in the same spectrum, if you're having trouble staying consistent with PE, then sometimes you can use that as a motivator. So anyways, guys, hope this helps. Check me out on Reddit. Check me out on, Getting Bigger, Leviathan Wellness, or LeviathanSubs.com. Me and BD have our supplements to help with both semen load and to help with erection quality. Until the next one, catch you guys then. See ya.